Attention Guilford County! Are you ready for positive change in our schools? Introducing Bill Goble, a true champion for our students, parents, and teachers. With years of experience and unwavering dedication, Bill Goble is the leader we need on the school board. As a former board member at District 3, Bill is already making a difference, shaping policies that benefit our community. Vote for Bill Goble for school board, and let's build a brighter future for Guilford County together. Paid for by the Citizens for Common Ground.
Coming up in this episode of Finding Common Ground.
When I was on the school board, we have two roofers. We pay them $15 an hour. I was asking one of them, how do you support a family on $15 an hour? And he said, well, I work another job. He says, I work at Family Dollar and I make $17 an hour. Makes more at Family Dollar than he does our school.
On. You talk about our children. We talk about the classroom. The classroom is so important, don't get me wrong, but that support group and everything else that supports the classroom. Yes. And the roofs, you can't teach them if the rain's falling on your head.
And there were people that lobbied not to give the school system money. They said, I wouldn't trust them with the money. They would steal it and just horrible things. And it's about the kids. It's not about the school system.
Be careful because folks are going to be fact checking you. And they're going to say, Bill Goble said he started, he was the main one, da-da-da. That's not what you said.
I was not the main one.
There are two sides to every coin.
How do we deal with racial issues when they affect relationships?
Finding common ground on all those issues that we come against.
There's black and there's white.
And I think as Christians, we have to learn how to get together because we're not in heaven.
I've met more interesting people just by God just bringing them in.
Republicans and Democrats.
But a lot of times, when it comes to race and it comes to culture and it comes to perception, even as Christians, we don't always understand. We look at it through our lenses.
There's Bill.
I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland called Parma.
Any black people in Parma?
There was not one.
Not one black person,
Not
Bill?
one.
Come on, Bill, you got to have one, token black person, a token.
And there's Odell.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, public housing, single mom, divorced single mom of 4 kids, and I came up through segregation and all that kind of stuff.
If a black person drove through the town, the police would stop and escort him out.
Bill and Odell are finding common ground.
A part of what we have to do is listen to each other, find the common ground, and question, not questioning you like you're on a witness stand, but questioning you for better understanding.
Father God, we come to you this evening in the precious name of Jesus Christ. God, we thank you for friendship. We thank you for grace. We thank you for mercy. We just thank you for this great country that we live in, this country that we call the United States of America. And God, please continue to bless America, bless democracy. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Heavenly Father, we just lift up our country as we go through an election cycle. And we think it's crazy. And it's because we need to understand that you're in control. And you've already predestined what's going to happen. And Lord, we just got to be faithful to you and trust you and do the next thing. Amen.
Bill, guess what I learned?
What'd you learn?
I learned that the Guilford County Association of Educators has endorsed you for the 2024 election. And then I learned that the George C. Simpkins Memorial PAC has endorsed you for the 2024 election. What's going on around here, man? These are just all these diverse groups are endorsing you. I mean, what's going on, my friend?
Well, I'm blessed and humbled by all those endorsements. And I think, as I reflect on that, clearly God's hand was in all this because there's no way I could go out and do these things without his intervention. And, I just met a lot of these people in both these organizations and was interviewed by him. And I was just being honest. I was being myself. I said, I'm not a D, I'm not an R, I'm a K. And they said, what's a K? That's for the kids. And that's where I want to stay focused. And so they, after listening to me and listening to my opponents, and they decided that they were going to support me, the unaffiliated person. And I'm so excited to have their endorsements.
Well, help me understand Guilford County Association of Educators advocating for students' learning conditions and educators' working condition. Is this the teachers or is this the friends of the what is this PAC and this association?
Well, I think there's several thousand people involved in this, and it's to teachers, the maintenance people, the cafeteria people, anybody that works in a school is part of the organization. It's not a union. It's an
Okay.
organization that advocates for these folks and advocates for good working conditions, a decent, honorable wage, good benefits, and so they are the ones that are the front line of our schools. You know, in Boy Scouts, we say the Scout Masters and the Cub Masters are on the front line. All those volunteers are working directly with the kids. This is the front line. These
Wow.
are the people doing all the work, doing all the heavy lifting, and I'm dedicated to them. You know, I think when I was on the school board, I don't know if I told you the story, but I was on the school board and I received an email, as did all the other board members, from the maintenance department saying, "Hey, we'd like you to come over and see and talk to us because we have some issues." So I called and said, when would it be for a good time for me to come over? And she says, everybody arrives here around 7 o'clock. And that would be a good time if you could come at 7 o'clock and talk to us. And I said, sure. So we picked a date, and I said, well, how many people are going to be there? And they said probably 60 people. I said, okay. So I stopped at Biscuitville on the way and picked up 65 biscuits, egg and country ham biscuits, and I was going to bring coffee, but she said they had coffee, and so I show up, and I was the only board member that showed up.
Wow.
And the only one that returned the call. So I was there about 3 hours, and they really opened my eyes.
Whoa, wait a minute. You were there for about 3 hours?
Yes.
And you just sat there and talked to people that other people don't talk to.
Yeah. And I was asking them questions. Like there was one fella, I remember, like, we have 12 million square feet of roofs. We have 2 roofers. We pay them $15 an hour. We have 4 or 5 heat and air conditioning people. And we don't pay them very much either. And I was asking one of them, I said, are you married? Do you have a family? He says, oh, yeah, I have 3 kids. I'm married. I said, well, how do you support a family on $15 an hour? And he said, well, I work another job. And I said, well, where do you work? He says, I work at Family Dollar and I make $17 an hour. Makes more at Family Dollar than he does our school.
On, Goble.
Yeah.
On. That's embarrassing.
It is.
Nothing against Family Dollar. Nothing against family. But we talk about our children. You talking about our children. So now I have a better understanding when they talk about, you know, advocating for students' learning conditions and educators' working condition. So it's almost like the brick and mortar. We talk about the classroom. The classroom is so important. Don't get me wrong, but that support group and everything else that supports the classroom. Yes. And the roofs, you can't teach if the rain's falling on your head, you know?
Or the toilet's backed up, or you don't have heat or air conditioning because it's broken and it's so old they can't get a replacement part.
Well, what was some of the interview? Do you mind, and can you share with us what were some of the interview questions when you just paint the picture for us? What happened? You all walked in, they called you, internet, Zoom. How does the interview work?
Both of them were Zoom interviews.
Okay.
In each case, they had probably 12 people, 8 to 12 people interviewing me. And the general question is, what do you want to do when you're on the school board? What are your plans? One fella asked me, he says, you know, I was following in the news, you know, he says, you were a Republican. I said, yes, I was. And he said, well, they were treating you like as if you were a black liberal.
Oh, man.
Democrat. He said, they were treating you bad. And I said, yeah, he says, do you know why? And I said, I have no idea. I said, I volunteered to help solve a problem. They needed a third name to put in front of the state legislature. And I said, let me check with my wife. If she says it's okay, put my name in. And so she said it was okay. They put my name in. And the rest is history. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to it. But, you know, I said, I don't get it. I said, I don't understand it. I happen to think I'm a pretty good candidate because I work hard. I can raise money. I can articulate a position. I think I can move the needle a little bit. So why wouldn't you want me to be part of your ticket? and we all got a giggle out of it. But the reality is, I was listening to the news today, and there were some Republicans going for Harris. They're having a big rally for that, and they interviewed a couple of Republicans and said, "Why are you going to Harris?" And they said, "The Republican Party is the Trump Party, not the Republican Party. It's the Trump Party, and it's made up of radicals, and it's a cult." And what the definition of a cult is, no matter what the leader says, you do it. And that's what the situation is. The Republican Party has been hijacked by this Magna Group. And so it's the Trump Party. And we, as the Republican Party, have to step out and break this cult. Because if we don't, it's going to destroy the Republican Party. And he was right. It is a cult. And when you look at how I was treated, there was no reason to treat me that way. Just because they wanted someone else in the position than me. It's like a school kid pouting and bullying. They just bullied me. So anyhow, the interview questions were, very constructive and positive. What are you going to do positive? How are you going to help the schools? And what's your vision? And my vision is that we start, I go to the state legislature and start lobbying for our school systems to get additional funding. I also want to help build our endowment. We have a small endowment. I'd like to build it as big as we can. The two schools that are in our system in the state have a $1.6 billion and a $1.4 billion endowment, and they're just pulling the interest off. So we can start working on that and restrict it so it can only be used. There was a great program that COVID funds supported, and the program was high intensity tutoring. And what it was, the kids, when they went through COVID, really lost ground learning. And this now allows them to do one-on-one or small groups, intensive tutoring to get them caught up. And it's proven very successful with results. Well, the funding ends this year. So we can't keep it going. And it's only about maybe $60,000 or $70,000. So the school board chairman, Dina Hayes, and Betty Jenkins sent a letter to every one of the towns in Guilford County and said, based on your registration of students, if you were to give us $6.50 per student, we could reinstate this program. So they asked Summerfield for $28,000 and Stokesdale for $30,000. I can't remember the exact numbers, but everybody got a number, and every one of the towns turned them down. They said, you're getting our tax money through real estate taxes. We don't have to give you any more money. And there were people that lobbied not to give the school system money. They said, I wouldn't trust them with the money. They would steal it, and it's horrible things. And it's about the kids. It's not about the school system. So if we had that endowment, we could take some of that money and use it to do this kind of a program. So that's what I want to do.
It's interesting when you look at the different diverse PACs that you have who's endorsed you. Guilford County Association of Educators, that's a big deal. But also the George C. Simpson Memorial PAC, they endorse you also. That's a Greensboro and High Point. Now, how did that interview process go? How did all that occur?
Well, they sent me an email last week and said, we're going to be interviewing a lot of candidates. Here are the time slots. And which one would you like? And I said, well, what's the last one? They said 7:15. I said, I'll take that one.
Why that strategy? And I'm just curious.
Well, for two reasons. One is I know when I do things like that or interviews, the last one sticks in your mind.
Okay.
And the other thing is they're tired. They're not going to ask as many questions.
All right. So for the people who listen to us nationally who don't understand or not familiar with the George C. Simpkins, Simkins Memorial PAC, is not 100% African American, but it's a very powerful, well-respected, strong African American PAC in Greensboro, Guilford County, High Point, and they mean business. And I've worked polls before. People come out with that endorsement in their hand and they vote right down the line on what they endorse. And now it's not a strictly Democrat or strictly Republican or independents. So Bill, the history there is they tend to endorse who they think is the best candidate. And that's the kind of welcome you received when you went and talked to that group also?
Oh, yeah. They were very professional, very straightforward. In fact, one of them said, tell the group about your podcast with Reverend Odell Cleveland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I bragged on you. I said, once I get that Baptist preacher going, I just turn off my mic.
Well, it's interesting that I'm just so proud of you in a way because you went through a lot. You didn't quit. And now it appears that we're coming out on the other end. You have an endorsements and these groups. And the thing about it, a lot of these individuals were sitting front row seats watching all that happened to you, through you, with you. They were on the front row. So I'm sure people say, I've kept up with what happened to you. And they got a chance to evaluate based on what they know or didn't know. And they had a chance to evaluate your who you're running against because they're there. These people pay attention. So for them to say, yes, we are endorsing you, that means a lot. That means a lot. Do you have any idea how many people the Simpson PAC represents and how many people the other association represents?
Well, the other association probably has 7,000 or 8,000 people. And they've offered to put up yard signs,
Wow,
work at the poll for me, and do other volunteer things. The Simpkin PAC does a couple things. My understanding is that they do a direct mail piece to thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. So that's going to be a very productive thing for me because to send a direct mail piece out costs you about $1 with the postage and everything. So, if you send out 10,000 pieces, that's $10,000. And there's 52,000 roughly voters registered in my district, of about which 37,000 actually vote. I think this year is going to be a little higher. So I don't know what the distribution is going to be on the direct mail, but it's got to be close to 10,000, I suspect, maybe more.
Give us the timeline on when you got elected or appointed to the school board, when you resigned from the school board. Are you still going to school board meetings? And when will the new appointee be appointed to the school board from District 3?
The new appointee would be, I'm going to start in reverse order, would be after the November 5th election. I believe it's in December where they bring them in. And I'm going to personally call Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Paul Newby, a friend of mine, and ask him to come and swear me in.
Wow.
And then
he's the highest person in the state almost.
Yeah, he's one of the top guys. And I don't know, I'm going to give him a heads up. I'm going to have to find out the date that they do it.
Right.
And call him and say, hey, can you come over that evening and swear me in? He wanted to do that when I became council president for the Boy Scouts.
Wow.
And he was a little upset that I didn't call him. So I'm not going to make the same mistake. But I started on this journey actually in January of 2022, I think it was. And no, 2023. And that's when I volunteered. And I got appointed in April of 23. Mm-hmm. And from April to the end of August, I was on the board, and I resigned in August of 23. And then I had to collect, because I was running unaffiliated, I had to collect 3,500 signatures, which I did by early March of 24 to get on the ballot. And now that I'm on the ballot, I'll start campaigning door to door again September 1st and campaign door to door from September 1st until early voting, which I think starts sometime in October. And then in early voting, I'll be standing outside of the polling booth doing that. And then election day, we have 17 locations we have to man, and it's a 12-hour day. So I have a fellow that's going to put together a schedule and let people sign up when they want to do it and see if we can cover all that time. I think I've been reading, looking up all the data on where the biggest polling location is for my district for individuals, and I'll probably work that one. And then we'll break it down from there. What's the second most, third most, fourth most? We'll just keep working our way down.
And I'm going to get into this article I read about Guilford leaders hope this new half and half strategy can win back homeschoolers. And it talks about students can now mix homeschool and high school through a new program from the Guilford County schools. But before I go there, how does it make you feel when, in spite of everything and because of everything, you got these endorsements? And I know you always believed, of course, I know you believe, but now other people are matching your faith and they're believing also. Which one did you get first? And how did you hear about it?
It's very humbling when people step up and support you. The first one was the Guilford County Association of Educators. And we had a nice long interview with them. And they sent me an email about a week ago, I think. Said, congratulations, you have an endorsement. You can use our logo. So I started posting on Facebook. And then the Simpkins was this week. And normally they don't call the person for 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Call right away. Well, I got a call the same night, hours
Wow.
after I interviewed. And he said, look, we normally don't do this, but I've been told to call you and tell you got it and go use our name as much as you want. And I said, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. So they have a website and they'll put my picture up there, and you'll be able to click on the picture and go right to my website for GobleNC.com. And the other thing that's real important, Odell, that we probably should talk about is, on the ballot's going to be a sales tax initiative.
Mm.
0.25%. You wouldn't even notice it. And we're going to use that money to pay the teachers and the maintenance people that I was talking about that are underpaid.
Wow.
And that would give us enough money to increase their salaries on an ongoing basis. And that idea came from the county commissioners and some of the school board members. And the sales tax hasn't passed in this county in a long time. So we're going to have to go out and work to get that out there, support the sales tax. And I'm going to do everything I can to help them with that.
Have you heard anything else? I know at one time you were talking about the possibility of a debate. Any news on that?
No, he's turned me down. So I don't think there's a need to have a debate. I think I'd rather spend my time out going door to door.
Okay, so you have a Democrat representative and a Republican representative.
Correct.
Now, the Simpson PAC usually endorsed the Democrat representative. And
yes.
I'm not going to say this is the first time ever, but it was very surprising that they endorsed you instead of the Democrat representative. Or the Republican representative, what do you contribute to that?
A couple things. One is I've been around this city since 1990, this area, and I've built tremendous relationships like you have and networked. So people know you and know me. And when people talk bad about Odell or bad about Bill, people that know us go, no, that ain't right. You got it wrong. This is a good guy. And I think people started realizing when they were bullying me so much that they're going, wait a minute, this is not the Bill Goble we know. And I think they got offended and wanted to make it right. And so they stepped up and they said, we're going to make this right. And, I talked to my Democratic opponent and I asked him to pull back and support me. And he basically, stubbed his nose at me. And I explained to him, I said, the way it's broken out, we have 38% unaffiliated. I'm going to get 70, 80% of that. And then there's 32% that are Republican, and I'll get 20% of that. And then the rest of it is all Democrat. And with the Simpkins PAC backing me, I'm going to get a lot of that. And so if you start looking at the numbers, I think I'm going to end up with greater than 40% of the results. And the other two guys are going to break down into the 30s.
Very, very, very interesting from that perspective as you look at it and where the votes are coming from and everything else. So has it been worth it, sir?
For the kids, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you've been a big supporter in both you and Bev, both from the standpoint of emotional and spiritual and financial. I just appreciate that loyalty and that friendship. And we are going to have a ceremony where you officially endorse me.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know where we're going to do it. We'll have to figure that out. maybe we do it at my fundraiser.
Maybe that's
Maybe
a good
that's a
thing. That's a
good
good thing.
place to
Speaking
do
of fundraiser, when is the next fundraiser? I don't know if you could tell where, but when and how can people who can't get there?
Participate.
Yes.
Yeah, August 27th at 6 o'clock. And if you want to know the location, you can text me at 336-202-6485. 336-202-6485. And I'm happy to send you the location. And people have stepped up. Catering services offered free catering. I had a guy today call me up, a friend of mine. He's a printer. He says, I want to print 100 signs for you and give it to you as a pro bono. I said, we can't do that, but you can give it to me in kind and we can sign it up. And he says, I'm happy to do that. So he's going to print 100 signs.
Well, what's the difference between pro bono and in kind? I'm just asking.
Pro bono is like lawyers give free service to someone that can't afford it.
Right.
In kind, they don't. For when you run an election, you can receive in kind votes, money. Like I'm getting billboards put up. Well,
Right.
and I'm not being charged for it. So that's a gift in kind. You have to declare it and show
Right.
it. And you have to do your financial reports every quarter, and then as you get closer to election, it's every month. And I hired a top-notch financial person to handle it because I knew these people were going to come after me and check every I and every T to make sure they were done right. And I wanted the financials to be, if they want to come and check them, there's no issue. And we've been doing it that way. And we've raised significant money between the money and the in-kind. I think if you add both of my competitors combined and multiply it times 3, it wouldn't equal what I got.
Wow. Now, as you know, and I know, being an educator, words matter. You're a very intelligent, successful businessman. You used a couple words that I want to ask you to kind of drill down in. You used the word bullying a lot, and you use these people as referring to a certain segment of the Guilford County GOP. But bullying, when you talk about bullying, usually bullying and school go together, and we work hard to prevent that, but usually that's kids. You are an adult and you're using the term bullying. Help me understand, help the audience understand why you choose that word, and why would someone on a school board ever be bullying another person on the school board, or people who's dealing with school be bullying someone dealing with school? Because if the main thing's the main thing and it's the children, look like the last thing that we would want is anything associated with bullying, sir.
Yeah, you would think so. And you'd think adults would want to set an example for kids. But I was taking, with Boy Scouts, you have to take a youth protection training program.
Yes.
It's online. It lasts probably 3 hours. And they go through all different types of things that kids can, be affected by, bullying being one. And there's 3 types of bullying. There's physical, there's mental, and there's cyber.
Wow.
And, physical, we all know what that is.
Yeah.
Right. And in psychological, we know how people call each other's names
Right.
and kind of degrade each other. But the cyberbullying, it's interesting. And that's what I was getting. It's when people call you names and threaten you, or
Wow.
try and degrade you on the internet. Like, for example, one guy posted a picture of a snake in front of the school board with my picture on it.
Wow.
And then somebody called our office and said, is this Bill Goble's company? And Star said, yes. He says, is this where the snakes hang out?
Wow.
So, but they don't identify themselves. Now, who's the snake?
Wow. So this affected your employees and everything. So, wow. Wow. So when you say stop bullying me on the internet, what's their response back to you? I'm not bullying you, or
they accuse me of being oversensitive. I go,
okay.
You don't know me. I'm not oversensitive. And these are people that know me, that when they were running for office, I contributed to their campaign. it's just human nature. And, what Jesus did when he was in Nazareth, he dusted his sandals off and moved on. I'm doing the same thing. And I'm going to dust my sandals and move on.
Well, they crucified Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, they crucified him. How's the intensity? Because we got to do anything and everything to get Goble off the school board. Has the intensity died down, or the intensity picking back up now? Or do you anticipate that once it's already came out, you sharing the endorsements, using the labels, what do you think they're going to say now? It's almost like how you like me now. So what do you think that response or that blowback is going to be, sir?
Well, it was real quiet for a while because they were preoccupied. There wasn't much going on, but they were preoccupied with Trump and all that, and Mark Robinson and all those other people. Now that it's getting a little closer, I think there'll be less focus on me on a school board position because they've got to worry about getting Trump in. They got to worry about getting Mark Robinson in, and this other lady who's running for state school board superintendent. They've got other priorities, and District 3 in Guilford County may get some attention, but it's not going to get much from their standpoint. I think, and that just shows you how shallow they are. Because if they really cared about the guy they had in there, they would really be backing him.
It's interesting. You mentioned former President Trump, and you mentioned Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. I was talking to some of my contacts in D.C., and I was asking them about former President Trump, and I was saying, Kellyanne Conway is in, so that means who's going out? And my contact said Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita. And I'm like, those are the top dogs, but I didn't even know who they were. So the campaign starts going sideways, people make adjustments.
Yeah.
So now, with all that in mind, and I'm gonna come back to that, Guilford County leaders, I'm assuming superintendents or school boards, and help us understand the difference where school board stops and the staff and teachers and superintendents and administrators start. It says Guilford leaders, not Guilford County, Guilford leaders hope new half and half strategy can win back homeschool students. And then it goes on to say students can now mix homeschool and high school through a new program from Guilford County Schools. Now, I know you haven't been on the board, but I know you keep up with it. Can you explain what this program may or may not be, sir?
Yeah, my understanding is one of the things, I know a lot of people that have homeschooled their kids. They've done a terrific job. The thing that is missing is the socialization.
Got it.
The sports and the other things, the interaction that they have. And so I remember, we helped start Caldwell Academy, and we would play basketball with the homeschool league.
What's Caldwell Academy? Because some people around the country may not know what Caldwell Academy is, sir.
It's a classical Christian-based organization, and it's a private school. And Dory and I were in probably one of the first 50 families involved in it. And our daughters went to it. Will could do it because of his special.
Be careful, because folks are going to be fact checking you, and they're going to say Bill Goble said he was the main one. That's not what you said.
I was not the main one.
There you go.
No way. There were some people that were into it a lot further than we were. We did donate some money to it and that kind of thing. And Dory worked there for a while as a librarian, but both our daughters went to it, and it's a great school. We made a lot of friends. We were doing basketball or baseball or whatever sport it was. They had a homeschool group that played against Caldwell. And, I felt bad because you could tell that they weren't going to school together every day.
Right.
Okay. They weren't building those relationships. They might have been going to practice, every day, but they didn't have anything beyond that. So I think what they're offering is you still teach your child at home. Okay. That's fine. And if you want to do biblical principles or Hebrew principles or Arabic, whatever you want to do, you could do that at home. But they want to somehow bring them into the public school system to interact with some of the classes and and a lot of the socialization, which I think is a healthy thing for kids.
I agree.
And I've seen a lot of great homeschool kids go very far and been totally well adapted. So it's not a win or lose on either side. It's just another option. I think that we had a fair at the Coliseum, and all the schools and all the opportunities to learn were there. For example, they had an aviation school. They had a mechanical school. They had a truck driving school. They had nursing. They had all these different things that kids could go to a particular high school, learn robotics, learn about programming, learn about gaming. It's just give kids that are gifted toward a particular item to go and work and be educated in that. Music, the arts, and some kids are great at arts, but man, they can't shoot a basketball and they don't care to.
Right.
And that's what I love about scouting. And you mentioned it a long time ago. The beauty of scouting, we have 133 merit badges. That gives 133 different subjects that kids can try. Say, man, I really like this.
Right.
I think this is something I want to pursue. So that's kind of what it is.
What's Guilford County's budget? What's the school board's budget?
Close to $1 billion. Close to $1 billion.
Billion with a B?
With a B. And we have almost a $2 billion capital expenditure budget to build schools. And it's about, we have to probably double that to do it right.
When you were there, what committee did you serve on? And when you get elected, you were appointed the first time. What committee do you look to would be your prize plum committee where you think you could do the most good for everyone who believes in you, everyone who's endorsed you, everyone who's gave money to you? What would be that committee, if there's such a thing, and why?
Two areas. I'd like to go and lobby on our behalf with the state legislature. And I'd also like to work on building our endowment. Now, I haven't gotten into curriculum. Curriculum comes from the state. So I haven't gotten into that, but that's something else I want to look into. What are the subjects for teaching? And I don't understand. I still have to learn, and I got a lot to learn. But this is one area I want to get into is how do we evaluate the effectiveness of our schools from the standpoint of kids graduating and what they're learning, their reading skills, their math skills, their spelling skills. How do we evaluate that? And there's a formula for it, and I don't understand it yet. And quite frankly, I'd left before I could get into it. But I plan, if I get elected, I'll be in there 4 years. I'll have plenty of time to get into it.
Well, help me with this then, because one of the things that I found later on in life after going to Harvard and going some other places, the whole idea of case study, but also leadership assessment, the 360, all those type of things, they evaluate you. Do you do that in the school, and why can't we? Financial literacy, why can't we bring those lessons down to the classroom level? Is it something that we can't do, or investment clubs? Can people have clubs? How does all that work?
That's a great question. I don't know. I know there's leadership training and education for the continuing education for the schools, teachers.
Okay.
And, when we do our summit next week, we're going to provide continuing education credits for teachers that show up and lawyers. So they do ongoing things, but I don't know specifics. I got to learn that.
Well, I wasn't even talking about the teachers. I was talking about students, especially in high school. How do students do these evaluations to know what they're good at? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of times corporate, and that's a big deal. Corporate knows a lot of stuff. So if we could borrow from corporate, that could help us in a big, big way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can go out to other school districts that are doing things and successful. Say, tell us how you're doing it. Tell us. So I think that's another thing that we can do is benchmark against other school systems. Now, we have a very poor population.
What does that mean, a very poor? Are you talking about poverty?
I'd say 80%, I may have the number wrong, 60 or 80%, which is a big number, are Title I schools. That means the kids qualify for free breakfast and lunch. And that is a lot of our schools. And even in the affluent areas where you would think, oh, no, they don't have that issue. Places like Oak Ridge, which is a very wealthy community, they're a Title I school because...
How is that possible?
That's what I say. There obviously there's a lot of people that you and I aren't aware of that are not. When you're making $15 an hour, you qualify for Title I.
Wow. So you're telling me in some cases, and make sure I understand this, when you sat down with the individuals and they wanted to meet with you, the maintenance folks at the school system, now I have a better understanding. I think I do. Please correct me because I can get things mixed up. They working full-time, benefits and everything else, and still living in poverty, and their kids still would be a factor in determining if the school that they may or may not be working in will be Title I based on their incomes. So I think it was last year, I saw where the individuals who were working for the school system, either they went on strike or threatened to go on strike. What was that all about? And was that the same group that endorsed you, sir?
That group was protesting the low pay that everybody was getting, not just the teachers, but everybody. And that's acknowledged. I mean, there isn't a school board member that doesn't say we got to pay our people more. If you look at what our county's providing, the way the system's set up is the state is supposed to provide money for the teacher's salary, teacher's benefits, and the educational curriculum. That's their job.
Right.
And provide funding for that. And they've underfunded that for years, decades. And then this federal government provides these global programs like the food I was telling you about, the Title I schools that get free food. And they've provided COVID funding and things like that. It's kind of a global things. But then the local county is to provide, or community is to provide the buildings, the physical buildings. That's their primary responsibility. And, the school buses are all owned by the state.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're all owned by the state, but we have to provide the drivers and the insurance, I think, and the fuel and all that stuff and maintain them. So we get new school buses from the state on a rotating basis. So we don't have to pay for that, but we got to maintain them. And we got a lot of other expenses. And then we have a lot of security expenses. As you know, nowadays, the schools are soft targets and we can harden them. So that costs a lot of money to do. And the county has chipped in for that. And so I looked at our county spending and said, how are we doing compared to other counties in the state in total and for counties our size? We're the third largest district. We're actually a little bit ahead of where we should be as far as spending. So we're doing a little better job. But there are some that are doing twice as much as we are doing. So I said, okay, how are they doing that? Are they taxing? Because if they're taxing, that's not a sustainable model. Because what happens is your property taxes go up. People move away. They don't want to live in that community because the taxes are so high, even if you have a good school. So I went and visited the superintendents for those two school districts, and they said, oh, we have a $1.6 billion endowment. Another one had a 1.2 or 1.4. And they're just pulling money off of that to help supplement their school system. So that's what we need to do. We need to build up our endowments so we can do the same sort of thing and provide, Guilford County school system with its largest bond in the history of North Carolina is going to be in the next less than 10 years when these schools start popping up like Claxton Elementary, where I visited. I mean, that school is unbelievable as far as quality and stuff like that. I mean, the mobile classrooms that can be divided and subdivided and moved around and rotated. The gymnasium has got huge garage doors so the kids can run outside and run inside. I mean, there's just all kinds of flexibility on that. I mean, the kids can actually write on the walls or record. I mean, it's just incredible technology. I met the engineers that were doing it, and I asked them about the heat and air conditioning system, mechanical systems. I said, we're going to be building a lot of new schools. Are we using the same systems in every school? Because if we're going to have maintenance people, it's the Southwest Airline concept. Southwest Airline flies pretty much the same plane. So if they have tires in Greensboro, they'll work on a plane that lands in Greensboro. Right. They don't have to wait for another plane to bring in another tire. And so I said, are we doing that? And they said, this Claxton, they did not. The way they've got it set up in Claxton was they used to have a big boiler system for the whole school. And if that boiler went out, school was cold.
Right.
And if the chiller went out, the school was hot. And he said, now what we're doing in Claxton, we have modules. So if that module breaks in that room, we close the room, kids move to another room. And now that isn't going to be the case, I don't think, in the rest of the schools. I got to get into a little more to understand it. But we got to make it simple so that maintenance. And now what we do when we build a school or rebuild a school, we also budget for the maintenance,
Wow.
which we never did before.
So we just didn't do it.
No, we didn't have the money. The state, and then people say, "Where's all the lottery money?" Well,
Yeah, where's all the lottery money?
well, it's not in your and I pocket. I'll tell you that. The way it was set up was originally the lottery was set up that 46% was going to go to the schools, and I think it was for capital improvements, but I have to check that. But 46% was going to go to schools. You got to give 50% to the winners, right? So you've only got 50% to work with. So they're going to give 40% to the schools and 4% for marketing and administration of the lottery. And that 46% was supposed to be incremental to what the schools currently get.
Right. Right.
And well, the state legislature changed the law. And imagine that. Now it's not incremental. It's part of the budget. And it's not 46%. It could be anything that the state legislature decides. And the last time they did it was 26%.
Wow.
And so we're not getting the money for the schools as it was promised. And now what Guilford is doing is they're pretty smart with this. They're using the school money because the money doesn't go to the school systems, it goes to the county commissioners.
Mm.
The county commissioners are pretty smart. They're using it to retire the school bond.
Wow.
Debt off, which is great.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you talked about those people, the GOP, they don't really have time to focus on you at one time. They're focusing on the governor's race. As people know, state of North Carolina is going to have one of the most expensive and most publicized governor's race. Here we have current Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, African-American Republican, and we have Attorney General Josh Stein, Jewish American. And that whole thing is just really going through the roof. The commercial ads, North Carolina is back in play now as a swing state. The ads, political ads, are just going through the roof. You sit there and you just see some of the ads and you're like, wow, the opposition research is just going through the roof. Bill, do a lot this time of year, and in the Black church, we get so many requests for politicians to come and visit. Mm-hmm. Do you all get that in the white church per se? Do they come to your churches to visit and all that good stuff?
When I was at Westover and Grace Community, no, we don't see it so much.
Well, those churches are huge. Westover, how many members? 6,000?
At one time, I don't think it's that anymore, but one time it was, yeah.
Yeah, and how long were you there?
Over 20 years.
And over 20 years, you didn't get that politicians, elected officials coming in around voting time to
glad-handed and stuff like that. No, if they were there before they were a politician, we acknowledged them, but they didn't get introduced or acknowledged from the pulpit at all.
Wow. So not even, and so if a senior pastor, he or she is standing in the pulpit and say, here's Odell Cleveland running for school board here visiting us today, just want to acknowledge him, y'all don't do that.
No, they don't do that. And now they may invite the person to come if they want and preach, if they, like Mark Walker was a preacher and Chief Justice Paul Newby, they let him preach at times, but they may, allow that. But, I think Howard Goble was in our church for a while, and no one ever, other than when you saw Howard, hey, Howard, how you doing? That kind of thing. But they never, from the pulpit, they never acknowledged anybody.
But Howard Goble was one of the most prominent Republican Congress people, nice guy, just a great guy. So now we are getting bombarded. I'm getting bombarded from people. Hey, we want to come and visit your church. We want to come and visit and all this kind of stuff. And we're very careful, but we've been exposed to it for so many years. We have a system in place. Yes, everybody's welcome. Yes, you come in, you will be acknowledged. But no, you won't give you the microphone, won't invite you up on the podium, none of that. Yes, you can shake hands to as many people you want to shake hands to after church, all this kind of stuff. Just treat everybody fair and decent. No, we don't endorse any particular political candidate from the pulpit or as church leaders. However, as private citizens, then we do endorse people as private citizens. But if Odell endorsed a Bill Goble as a private citizen and his friend, that's different and that's okay. But Odell can't endorse a Bill Goble as a leader of ABC Church. Yeah. But it's just interesting that you all don't get that the way we get it, though. We get bombarded. This time of year, my phone blows up. People want to come in and, hey, can you just say something for them? No, all that kind of stuff. Why do you think the difference there?
I don't, the Jewish community will acknowledge people as well.
Yeah.
But the Christians don't. And I don't, that's a great question.
Wait a minute. We're Baptist Christians too.
Yeah. But I mean, the white Christians, I guess I should say.
Oh, evangelical, but some of them on TV, Bill, they got the preachers preaching as hard as he can for Trump. And we don't want to slide into that. But
I guess I must have been in a couple congregations that just didn't do that. Some people do. I've been to churches in Oak Ridge and Summerfield and Stokesdale, and they've never acknowledged me. I've shook hands with people. I've met the pastor. I let him know I was coming to his church, but he didn't acknowledge me, and I didn't expect him to. I was there to worship God.
Well, that's a very strong statement. Now, what's happening in North Carolina, from what we have early indications, said Vice President Harris is even with Trump as far as the polls are concerned. And they say Stein is up by 10 points in North Carolina on Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. It's amazing how all this stuff works. And I was talking to, I talked to a lot of my DC people, and I was sharing with them, I'm like, wow, man, all this stuff is coming out on Robinson, whether you believe it or not, because political ads are political ads. And the individual said, yeah, there's a lot more going to be coming out. So I guess in politics makes strange bedfellows. Everything's fair, legal, because as the first one was rough on him talking about you should keep your skirt up. Yeah, I think everybody's seen that. That went national. Then they came out another one about the child care center and everything else. That was a rough one. And I saw where he said a cease and desist on that one, but that was still going on. I've been involved in that when I was a board member, and current Congresswoman Kathy Manning was running for the first time against Ted Budd. He was running for a congressional seat, and they came out with an ad similar to that about the community foundation when Kathy was the board chair. Something was done, and of course it wasn't true. And I remember as board members, we all signed a petition, signed letters saying this didn't occur. But why are you fighting through all that? The message is still getting out there. That's just true. The way it is.
That's true. Yep, that's true. And if you didn't know, like yourself, I didn't know you or Walker Sanders, who runs the community foundation, I wouldn't have known the backstory. I'd have saw what they just said and said, holy cow, how did she do this?
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. But I think you started talking about opposition research and all that, but you got beat up. It wasn't even opposition research. I mean, you just got baptized in fire from day one. So it's not like they went back 20 years and got something on Goble. So one of the good things about your situation is nothing to go back and get, because it was all out there from the very beginning.
Yeah, I know. I hope they don't go to Parma.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So now that's North Carolina. Many people believe that the North Carolina gubernatorial race is about not over, but Stein is just keep going more and more. And when you have to start playing defense, that means you're not playing offense.
Amen.
So now let's look at it from the national race with former President Donald J. Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris, and it's like that those polls are swinging like crazy. I'm hearing, like I stated earlier, that they're bringing in some old faces to help them kind of correct this whole campaign thing. And I just think, Bill, it just kind of shocked everybody because I don't think folks thought that Joe Biden would give it up. And when he gave it up, all the energy that's coming on now with Kamala, what do you think about all that?
Well, I think it's terrific. I think it's energized the whole campaign. I think after the Democratic convention, we're going to see a bump. They always do. And I think it's going to be important for them to show unity behind her and her talking about what I call the Kennedy future, where you talk about the future and where we want to head and build this great, great country and improve it for everybody and not be divisive, not be a bully, not to be calling people names, but to take the high road. I think Kamala could do that. I think she can do that. And I liked her running mate that she picked. He's a very straight talking, and it seems to be honest, respectable gentleman. So I think they're good combination. But then I think the key is going to be the first debate.
Explain.
Well, you remember when Hillary debated Trump?
Yes.
He walked behind her.
Yes.
You know, he's capable of just doing unorthodox things. But I think Harris is up to the task to call him out. And, you know, her response to that kind of action where, you know, I think Hillary was caught off guard because no one's ever done that. You know, everybody's been respectable and stayed in their podium and taught, you might point at somebody or something, but you didn't walk behind him. That's kind of crazy. But that's Trump. He's a showman. He's a showman. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's trying to make a spectacle out of it. And I think Harris can pull him down and expose him for what he really is, a fraud. And that the famous thing that I remember watching the debate between Ronald Reagan and Mondale. And Reagan knew they were going to ask him about his age.
Uh-huh.
And his response, and I may have it wrong, but his response was, I will not use my words, immature and youth of my opponent to my advantage.
Well, I remember that.
And they got a picture of him saying it straight faced, the audience laughing, you can hear him in the background, and Mondale is laughing. And I think that kind of sealed the deal that because he was laughing because it was a great line.
Well, I still think one of the better lines was,
oh yeah,
the whole thing with the Trump and Biden debate when Trump's like, I don't know what he said. He don't even know what he was saying. You know, I think that was a good line.
That was.
And again, I think it hurts that when you had the race won, because I still say when former President Trump got off of the platform after the attempted assassination, let me say I don't agree at all with someone trying to assassinate a president at all or any leader.
Amen.
That being said, when he got up and put up the Black Power sign, Bill, you know, keep telling him this is the Black Power sign. Say it loud, when Black and I'm proud. The Black Power sign, he had that thing won. Now it's got to the point now he is, if not losing, on the verge of losing as it relates to the polls. So now many people believe that Trump is going to go full ballistic, to your point, and try to make it a race thing. You know, that here's a Black woman and say, well, is she Black? She wasn't Black. Now she's Black. And now it's like, how did race stumble into this debate? How did being a woman stumble into this debate?
Well, who brought it in?
Things just stumble into it when we're like, come on, man.
Who brought those in? Who brought those subjects in?
I thought former President Trump brought him in.
Yeah, he did. He did. You know, I heard a cut from him today when I was driving to Durham, and he said, what the hell was I thinking? I should have never debated Biden. He said, now that I had it won, and if I would have never debated Biden, I could have used that he's incompetent and the worst president to my advantage. Now he doesn't have that.
Right. Let me ask you a question. I've heard some stuff about him ditching JD Vance. What do you think about that? I mean, that'd be unheard of.
Yeah,
I mean, if he does that, that's like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, that'll sink him quick. And if he starts firing people around him, like Watley, the national GOP head who came from North Carolina, he starts liquidating those people. He's gonna have egg on his face. Hey, we're getting close to closing here, buddy.
Well, let me say one thing about that. One of the things that, and this has come from a very, very, very reliable source, when you start talking about starting to fire people, with Kellyanne Conway coming on board or potentially coming on board, Susie Wiles and Chris Lacidova, who are the two big top dogs, I'm heard that, I don't know if they heard it yet, but I hear that they need to pack their lunch and get that box, that box when they fire you in the office, get that one box and put your stuff put your rags in the bag and get out of there.
Get your pencil sharpener in there.
Exactly. So listen, as we go to close, I just want to say congratulations again, because, when you start thinking about Guilford County Association of Educators, that endorsement, that's a big deal, and I think your name's going to show up on the Apple Card and, with other endorsed candidates. And I think you get invited to a candidate roundtable sometime in September and school vote together rally sometime in November. What's that all about?
Well, there's they've got a number of events they want me to attend, which I'm going to do. And I'm going to have sheets out for sign up for putting up yard signs, and I'll have a bunch of yard signs with me. I'm getting ready to buy another 1,500 yard signs. And so I have plenty of yard signs to give out. And, I'm enjoying this. You know why? Because I like people. And, even the people that kind of gave me a hard time and called me names, they're human beings and I still like them. I mean,
do you think they'll come around, Bill? Do you think that when this is all said and done, because everyone kept saying, no, he shouldn't be appointed, let the people decide. I remember hearing that. Let the people decide. Let the people. Well, now the people are going to decide. What do you think is going to happen if the people decide you? Well, some of these people who have said so many bad things about you, you've asked them out for coffee. Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. You said they called you a snake. They bullied you. Will they say, okay, you won fair and square now? Or what do you think is going to happen? Not that you have a crystal ball in front of you, but what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I already know. They've told me. You're buying the election because I've raised so much money. That's what they've told me. You're buying this election because you raised so much money. And I said, you want to know something? I raised that money before I had my first fundraiser because my friends and people called me and said, you were done wrong. What can we do to help? And I said, you can contribute to my campaign and sign the petition to get me on the ballot. And people sent me money because of them. So I thank them. Had they not been so mean to me, I probably wouldn't have been in the paper. I probably wouldn't have had all the publicity. I wouldn't have raised the money. So by them being mean to me, it helped me.
It's interesting. Now you have the other one, the George C. Simpkins Memorial PAC. This is a very strong, powerful, very influential PAC. I've seen them in action. And so you have two very strong endorsements. What other endorsements do you see coming? And what would groups that you've talked to or you're planning on talking to, that there's a possibility of additional endorsements? And do you know if any of your opponents have received any endorsements at all at this time that you're aware of?
I haven't heard of any. My opponents, the AFL-CIO is one I'm working on. First responders, the Fraternal Order of Police, still the ones that I'm working at. And who knows? I would go after the Boy Scouts, but we don't do politics.
Right.
So I don't need to. But, yesterday, where was I? I was standing and a gentleman came up to me and we started talking, and he turned out he was chairman of one of the scout units in one of the local churches, and he knew of me from scouting. And we ended up talking about his three sons that became Eagles. They took trips to Philmont. We talked about those, and he knew I was running for school board. And but we ended up talking about our kids and about the youth, and that's the focus we need.
Well, hey, in closing, take us with you on this trip you just got back from, and then how can people donate to your campaign?
Well, donate to my campaign. Go to www.goblenc.com, and there's a donate button. And I think the next podcast, let's talk about our trip out west that Dory and I took.
Okay.
And we'll also talk about Dory's birthday celebration that she jumped out of a perfectly good airplane.
Okay.
And she yelled Odell all the way down.
Maybe Geronimo.
Yeah.
But listen, thank you so much. I know that I felt good when I heard about your 2 endorsements so far, because I know the 2 groups and I know how important that is. But I also know you and all the blood, sweat, and tears and prayers and that you went through. So sometimes it's just refreshing to say, God, you're still with me.
Yeah, that is you hit the nail on the head, and I think that's a good way to end it. God, you're still with me, and I love you, buddy, and we look forward to our next podcast.
Same here, my friend.
Find Bill and Odell online at thecommonground.show. This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. All rights reserved.
Attention men, here's an important new podcast you need to be listening to.
So this whole issue about prostate and prostate health and all the challenges and that we're having with it, but no one's talking. So that's the reason why I started this podcast, so we can talk, so we can get understanding. I understand I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical individual. I'm just an ordinary, normal guy who had some issues to say, hey, let's talk about this thing.
P is for Prostate with Odell Cleveland. Download anytime where you get your podcasts. And join for the full podcast at www.patreon.com/Odell Cleveland.
Whether you're a big, medium, or small business, managing and growing the bottom line is important. Focus CFO brings the experience and financial acumen of a Fortune 100 Chief Financial Officer to your company at a fraction of the cost. P&L help, internal reporting processes, or any business transitions or events. Focus CFO will help you and your team have a CFO in your company's back pocket. Focus CFO. Learn more at focuscfo.com.